Welcome back to the Ignore the Tablet podcast, the only FPL podcast on the entire internet, hosted by yours truly. My name is Devin. Today we are talking about players to watch. So players that we think may do better, may do worse in the upcoming season. We're also going to be looking at the data, players that overperformed last season, players that underperformed. So if either of those regress to the means, we may see big swings in how they perform in the upcoming season. So we'll talk about that as well. Then we're also going to talk about more macro level stuff. So teams that we think may do better, may do worse. There will be justification. I'm not just pulling names out of a hat, but I think it's a good exercise ahead of the FPL season to think, okay, we have the data of last season. Now, do we think, can we do some projection and think actually certain players or certain teams may outperform or underperform what we saw last season? So that might help you get the competitive edge on certain players going into the game week 1 for the new FPL season. Before getting into it, I did want to shout out Reddit specifically for providing some comments on the content that came out last week, especially about the data, spotted some issues, and I was able to update that. So just wanted to thank everybody for making comments. It really does help me when I move quickly, especially when you're coding, just got all the data, the game came out, blah, blah, blah. Things tend to break. So I appreciate your patience with that. All the data, everything should be updated and should be accurate to the T on value added per million, the underlying data model, all that stuff. So again, just wanted to thank you all, and let's jump into the video. Let's start things out on the positive foot because I'm trying to be positive. I'm trying to be more positive in my older age, but starting out with players that I think, based on their trends and the data, could see a season where they improve upon what we saw last season. So we're going to kick it off with Bukayo Saka. There's a lot of reasons to indicate that he could have a better season. Especially over the last 2 seasons, he's been plagued with injuries. And if we look at his just like pure output, last season, 7 goals, 5 assists. The season before that, 6 goals, 10 assists. The season before that is where things start to pick up. So in the 2023-24 season, 16 goals, 8 assists. The season before that, 14 goals, 11 assists. The season before that, 11 goals, 7 assists. So we've got 2 kind of rough seasons back to back, last 2 seasons, and then 3 really positive seasons where he did much better. He did underperform his XG and his XA to these past 2 seasons where he did a little bit poorly. So we have that evidence as well. But just like kind of on a more macro level trend, if he does regress to his mean and we see him get back to these better seasons, I think Bukayo Saka is going to be a really, really valuable FPL asset. If not at the beginning of the season, where he may still be coming off of an injury from the World Cup, at least maybe mid-season or at certain points throughout the season, hopefully we can turn to Bukayo Saka because he's a great player. I would love to, just as a fan of football, I would love to see him get back to his best because we know how talented he could be. Likewise, we've got Cole Palmer, who, even by his own standard, did fine last season, 10 goals, 1 assist. But then we look at the previous 2 seasons that he had at Chelsea, 15 goals, 8 assists the season before that, and 22 goals, 11 assists in his first season at Chelsea, where I think he was priced at 5 million, maybe 5.5 million, an absolute joke. So we know that he's had injuries. With the managerial turnover, it hasn't benefited him. I think he's been one of the biggest losers from managers not really suiting how he's played in the past 2 seasons. And really, it is disappointing that his numbers have basically been cut by a third every single season, like 22 goals to 15 goals to 10 goals, and then 11 assists to 8 assists to 1 assist. Like, that is really bad. So I would hope, again, as a fan of football, I would hope for his sake that this is the absolute floor, and that if he can even get back to his 2024-25 season form, 15 goals, 8 assists, I mean, his price point is not prohibitive by any means. So I think that would be really good. And then you're really hoping if he can get back to his first season at Chelsea form, 22 goals, 11 assists, he's going to be an absolute joke. So Cole Palmer, I'm hoping that, I say that in a sense that like I'm trying to be optimistic, but I think the data would suggest that this is about as low as it gets for him. I would like to think that he can at least get back to his, like over 20 goal involvements, not 11 like we saw last season. And the fact that he had basically the whole summer off since he didn't go to the World Cup, he's able to focus purely on Chelsea. And as I will talk about when I discuss Chelsea in the, overall overarching theme, no European football. They can just focus on the league, just focus on the cup ties, which they have such a massive squad. Cole Palmer's probably not going to be playing those Carabao Cup, especially the early games. So hopefully with that, just playing one game a week, Cole Palmer can get back to his best. I think this is the best opportunity that he has. And the next player that we'll talk about from a trend standpoint, and you could probably substitute any Liverpool attacker or player in general in this, is Alexander Isak. This is where I'm going to go first, because if we look at how he played last season, he broke his leg, just general bad form even when he was fit, played 700 minutes. He got 3 goals, 1 assist. Like, that's pathetic by his standards. If we compare that to his previous season at Newcastle, 23 goals, 6 assists. The season before that, 21 goals, 2 assists. And his first season at Newcastle, 10 goals, 1 assist. Like, we know how good he is. If he can return to that Newcastle form, this is going to be insane. And then just in general, I think with Liverpool having one of their worst seasons ever, by any metric, essentially, but definitely by the underlying data, if they even slightly improve upon that, we're going to see huge boosts to players like Isak, Gakpo, whoever they bring in on the right wing. So I think there's a lot of positives to look forward for Liverpool. I think it's only up from here. And I think Alexander Isak, considering there's really no competition for center forward, Ekitike's out injured. He's going to have full reign to play and get as many minutes as he possibly needs to get goals and assists and pick up form. I think he could be a huge benefit to Andoni Iraola, his system, and Liverpool just improving overall because they need it. Switching over to players that I'm going to say it. I think these players are likely to regress a little bit because I think they ran very hot last season. So maybe that's a better way to reframe all this. I'm not just like optimistically hoping or looking at the trends. These are players that I would personally predict either have an uptick or downtick in form based on the trends. And for Bruno Fernandes, he just had a ridiculous joke of a season. 9 goals, 21 assists, breaking the record, of course. And his highest assist record before that was 12 assists. And that was back in the 2020-2021 season. Of course, he got 18 goals that season too. So that was his best season overall, I would say. And yeah, I just think he overperformed his expected goals. So that's another indicator that maybe if he hits 21 assists again, like that would be insane. I just really find it hard to believe that he would do that. Now, is it possible? Completely. But with Manchester United contending with European football, Bruno Fernandes getting older, not to say that he's like past it by any means, but having to play more games every single week. Like, Manchester United have not played that few games like since pre-war times. They got knocked out of each of the cups in the very first match. So they played the fewest amount of games you could possibly play for a team in this era. So the fact that now they're going to have increased amount of games, diverted attention. Bruno's the guy, so he's going to be playing all the Champions League games. He's probably going to be playing a lot of the FA Cup games as well. He's not getting younger. I just would be completely shocked if he was able to get 30 goal returns as we saw last season. So will he still be up there for getting penalties, things like that? Of course. Like, he's not going to be a terrible player. I just think compared to last season's form, it's almost guaranteed to regress at least to, something in this kind of realm. The way he's been playing in the past, like 4 seasons, basically, which is 8 goals, 10 assists, 18 goal involvements, not 30. So, that would be my prediction. Will it come true? We'll see. Next player I'll be talking about, and I have to be careful with this because players that are, entering their prime, you never know. They could just take it up another level. So I'm even a little hesitant on this, but Morgan Gibbs-White, he had such a great season last season, but as we could see, he overperformed by 3 1/3 goal. So XG saying that he should have probably had 11 or 12 goals. He ended up scoring 15. So 19 goal involvements altogether. The season before that, 7 goals, 8 assists. The season before that, 5 goals, 10 assists. They've got a new manager, possibly a new way of playing, new tactics. Will he be the guy? Yeah, probably, but will he hit the heights that we saw last season? I would lean on the side of probably not. I think last season was a big standout. And again, I'm cautious because players of this age can even go up another level. But if he was able to maintain that at Nottingham Forest, yeah, that would be a massive accomplishment. I don't personally, I'm going to go out on the limb and say I don't think he's going to hit those heights. So I'm going to be a little bit cautious, especially at the beginning of the season. But again, we will see. And the last player I'm going to talk about on like a trend basis, pulling stuff from Understat, shout out, is Harry Wilson. And he's going to pop up on another list when we talk about overperforming XG, because as we saw, he scored 10 goals, got 11 assists, 10 goals, 7 assists, 10 goals, 7 assists. His XG suggested that he probably should have gotten closer to 6 goals. So he overperformed by like 4 XG, which like not even far off doubling his XG output, and he overperformed his underlying assist by 1.5. So across the board, he really should not have gotten the goal return that we saw from Fulham last season. But one point in his favor is that he's generally a plus goal scorer. So what I mean by this is that he tends to over the course of his seasons at Fulham and one at Bournemouth, he's overperformed his underlying data. So we know he's got that long distance shot in his locker, and those are going to be very low XG, low probability chances that he just tends to convert over the course of his career. Now, will he continue to do that? I think the jury's out. I think on average, players across the course of their career tend to just finish like right around their XG. So he could just be like the anomaly. And I think there's a lot of things to his game that would suggest that he is a plus finisher. But new team, new setup, playing at Leeds, not at Fulham. So it's a different environment. I would think based on like his ridiculous overperformance of his underlying data, I just really don't see how it could happen. So even if he just like regresses to the mean of how he's been playing in the past few seasons, if we're comparing 17 goal involvements to 7 the previous season, or 10 the season before that, 5 the season before that, we could see a halving of his goal output. So he's a player I would be very cautious of bringing in game week 1. I haven't seen him in a lot of drafts, to be fair, but yeah, I wouldn't be going that direction. I didn't have him at all last season, to my dismay. Of course, he did great, but yeah, Harry Wilson as a player, I really like you, former Liverpool youth player, but I don't, the math isn't mathing on this one. I think he's going to have a worse season this season than he did last season. Now, switching over to some of the data I've been able to collect and calculate and all that, we can use this one very useful column, points minus X points per match, to get an estimation of who is overperforming and underperforming the underlying data model, based on last season, of course. So we could use that to suggest that if they, again, regress to the mean, maybe they for those that underperformed their XG, maybe we can see them improve upon that and get more points just in hand if they're able to score more in line with their underlying data. And then on the flip side, if they're overperforming their XG, if they regress to the mean, we may see a downturn in their form on last season. So let's start positive again, and let's take a look at players who underperformed, who I think could not overperform, but at least perform to their mean next season. And I've got a list that I'm going to try to go through quickly, but hopefully you understand, and we can make some points that are relevant to FPL, because I think there's a huge list of players, but I think there's going to be some that are more relevant to FPL than others. Like if we just sort by points minus X points and go down the list, the lower the number, so the more negative the number, the more that player is underperformed their underlying data. So at the top of the list, Yeremy Pino, who underperformed by about 1.5 points per match, which, considering he played 2,100 minutes, I don't know how many matches that comes out to, but if he played like 30 matches, multiply that by 1.5, and that's basically by how many points he underperformed. Yeah, so he scored 77 points, underlying data model suggesting he should have had 125 points. So absolutely crazy underperformance. But the ones that I kind of want to point out specifically, Jed Spence, and again, I should shout out, all of this is available on Airtable. That link's in the description, and the data are updated. And just really quick, you see zeros here because even though they played in the Premier League, the FPL app just does not recognize their points, so I can't calculate that. So yeah, I may try to bring them in, but players just ignore Jaden Anthony and Callum Wilson for now. Not that they're FPL relevant, but that's why that is. The player I did want to talk about, Jed Spence. So he scored 78 points, underlying data suggesting he should have scored 109 points. Now, the reason I want to bring up Jed Spence is not because I think at Tottenham he could regress to the mean and score more points, but at 4.5 million, if he goes to a team like Liverpool, who are crying out for a right back, they currently have an injury prone and currently injured right back and a right wing back trying to play as right back. I think Jed Spence could walk into a Liverpool team and just lock down that right back position. And he could also cover for left back, which is useful because currently it's Kirkes and Tsimikas, and Tsimikas didn't even barely played last season. So is he really the quality that Liverpool need as a backup? Questionable. But if he went to a Liverpool or some other side that would intend to use him as a starter, Jed Spence at 4.5 million, you would expect this number to be at least in line with this, possibly way more, because he had a lot of substitute minutes. He had a lot of minutes off the left where I think it's true that he's a little bit more natural on the right. He is right-footed, of course. So I could see Jed Spence as a player who does much, much better this coming season compared to last season. Next player I'll shout out is Mateta, who scored 114 points, underlying data suggesting he should have been at 142. So massive underperformance of his underlying data model, about 0.9 points per match. So that's crazy amount of underperformance. He is coming off of an injury. I think that did take him out of the World Cup squad, which I think he was in. But hopefully he has the whole summer off, able to recover, and if he's back to his best, I think Mateta would be a crazy player at 6.5 million. I think he was he like 7.5 or maybe even 8 last season? I don't know, but to get a price downgrade and the level that he is, I think Mateta could be one of those guys that just like has another breakout, but we'll see. Because there are some things like contractually, I know he was going to go to AC Milan and then he like failed the medical. And I think he's got like 1 year left on his deal. So he might not even be here at the beginning of the season, but if he is, he could be an amazing player. The next one I'll shout out is Ryan Sessegnon, who could be an out of position player. We don't currently know how Fulham are going to play under Arbeloa, new manager, no Marco Silva, of course, but a 4.5 million defender who scored 95 points, underlying data suggesting he should have scored 114. A lot of times he was playing as like a right winger or a left winger, more naturally probably like a left wing back, but yeah, he played 1,800 minutes under Marco Silva, but who knows what we're going to see under Arbeloa at Fulham. So if we do see him as like an out of position player, especially one that underperformed his underlying data quite a bit, if he could regress to the mean, play more consistently as an attacker, I think 4.5 million is going to be an absolute snip. So we'll have to kind of wait and see on that one. But Sessegnon is a player I would just pay attention to, especially in preseason, to see how they play. And I'm going to try to pick up the pace on some of this. So O'Reilly, Calafiori, Ismail Assar, Tavernier, Shada, Calvert-Lewin, Mitchell. These players are highlighted in green because those are players I own. So I went through my spreadsheet. I highlight my own players just to kind of get a clock of like where they're at, and all of them you could see underperformed the underlying data from 0.73 O'Reilly to 0.63, which was Mitchell. So I am tipping those players to do better. I'm not trying to say it's like not a coincidence that they're in my team, but I tend to go off the underlying data, and the underlying data suggests that these players should have done a lot better than they did last season. And I think they're very well priced. Like you'll see, I don't have the VAPM numbers up, but they do have very good value added per million, which would indicate their score, even their actual points, is pretty good for their price. So those would be the ones that I would tip. Is there anyone else I want to mention? Yeah, I could basically just go back to Liverpool in general. So Florian Wirtz and Cody Gakpo and Kirkez. We would anticipate that they would probably just do better by playing under... I don't want to knock Slot, but the form was so bad last season. It was too slow, wasn't effective. Hopefully under Andoni Iraola, it can be effective. I think I'm assuming it will be. So I think we're probably going to see just like a general boost to all of the Liverpool players in general. But yeah, let's switch over to the negative side. So on the flip side, if we, sort in the other direction, we could see players that scored more points than the underlying data model, and a few names pop out. So the first one I'll talk about that's somewhat FPL relevant would be Jeremy Frimpong, who ironically is a Liverpool player, and we would expect maybe they do better overall, but he actually pretty far outperformed the underlying data model by about 1.5 points per match, which is a lot. He didn't play that many minutes. He struggled with injury, but he was doing very well off the bench. And I think that helped boost his observed points compared to what he probably should have scored, which is like 32 points. So points per match, he got 3, should have maybe scored about 1.53 points per match. Again, I think a lot of that was because he was coming off the bench and playing as an attacker under Slot. But yeah, that would just be one I would clock just to be cautious of. And down from there, you got a few other FPL relevant names. So Eberici Eze, I think he was very popular for Arsenal last season. And again, he's like in those peak years. So I could see him making a step up to where, like, even though he scored 113 and his underlying data was 71, maybe we see his underlying data is closer to 113 and then he just like gets 113 points. So not somebody I would, like completely disregard, but I would just be cautious of somebody like Eze, who did massively overperform by like 1.25 points per match. And likewise, if we go down the list, we've got another Arsenal player who I think is pretty FPL relevant. I shouted him out on the video yesterday, but Mascara. So he scored 40 points, underlying data suggesting he should have had 22. So he basically doubled his output. But yeah, it's tough. when you've got such a limited sample size, it's hard to kind of make big claims, but yeah, Mosquera overperformed his underlying data. Does that mean he's going to be terrible this coming season? No, I rate him as a player, young player who can improve, but and he will get more like starting minutes, I think, at the beginning of the season, which should make these numbers a little bit more interpretable. But Mosquera I would be a little cautious of, personally. And moving down, we could see my favorite player, Reinders and Turkey. I want to kind of talk about them together because they both overperformed by quite a bit, similar margins. And people saw that with Reinders. He like got a goal and assist or some big like some big output at the beginning of the season, and then basically fucked off and wasn't able to create chances throughout the rest of his time at Man City. I don't even know if he's going to be very influential in the Man City squad in general. Rayan Cherki, a player I've seen in a lot of drafts. He scored 135 points. He was electric. He looked great, but he was scoring kind of low probability chances according to XG, because we're seeing underlying data model suggests he should have gotten about 107 points. So just something to be cautious about. If he does regress to the mean and he gets kind of closer to how he performed overall last season, we're going to see a shrinking of his numbers. And we already talked about this player, but Harry Wilson, he falls right into that same camp. He scored 168 points. XG saying he should have gotten about 142. So still really, really good by the underlying data, but yeah, he massively overperformed. And the last few players I just want to kind of rattle through. Kroupi Jr., I'm actually going to talk about him in the next segment. Bruno G, Semenyo, and Keenan Dewsbury Hall all overperformed. We saw that throughout last season, and I was just kind of shouting it out that these guys are overperforming. Semenyo in particular, I benefited from. I had him game week 1. He did really, really well, was overperforming. And then it kind of evened out a little bit more. But yeah, these guys are massively overperforming by like over a half a point per game. And again, it like across 30 matches, that's like, 15 points at least more. So will we continue to see an overperformance of these players? And that's one thing I should have mentioned earlier, is like these players can continue to overperform. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will regress to the mean, but if they do, then we may see some of these prices be inflated. So just something to be cautious about. The next section of players I want to talk about before we start getting into teams and more like macro level discussion is just like unknown players that I just don't feel confident enough about either way. Like they've got big pros, they also have potential cons that I think that there's enough uncertainty where I would just say, you know what? I think I'm going to wait and see on some of these players. So these are players that I'm definitely going to be waiting and seeing a little bit, being more cautious overall. And the first player I'm going to talk about is Kroupi Jr., who absolutely electric season. He scored 13 goals, which I think is the most by a teenager, apart from Wayne Rooney, maybe ahead of Wayne Rooney. I can't remember the stat, but 13 goals, 0 assists, overperformed his XG by a little over 4. So XG saying he maybe should have had closer to 9 goals. I think even 9 goals would have been really good for a 19-year-old. But the reason I would put Kroupi Jr. in this like unknown category is just there's just not enough data on him. He's so young. He could take another huge step forward as we saw this past season, and he could score 20 goals like realistically. He has so much talent. He looks so good. But he could also take a step back. He could regress to the mean of like if he scored 9 goals, that would still be great by his standards, by any standard. But I don't know if that would be matching up to the perception I think a lot of people have of him at the moment. So Kroupi Jr., I think for me, it would be a wait and see. I really don't know where to call like how he could perform next season. That one's a tough one. Likewise, we've got a sample size issue. Thiago did so good. And unlike Kroupi Jr., despite the fact that he scored 22 goals, he underperformed his XG. So he should have gotten almost 25 goals by the underlying data, and he should have gotten about 4 assists, and he only got 1. So if he regressed to the mean on his underlying data, he's actually going to do better. But the thing is there's just not enough data to show like over even a couple seasons. Since the season before, he was injured basically. He played 8 games, only 148 minutes of sub appearances, no goals, no assists. So yeah, Thiago, I was a huge fan of his last season. He did so great. There's a lot to like about him. He's got penalties, of course. He's an absolutely clinical finisher. Maybe not enough to get to that XG, but he's getting in great positions, taking great shots, creating good chances. So I think on one end, he could do amazingly. On the other end, how many players have we seen be like one-hit wonders? And this, not saying it will be, but there's a possibility that it is, that he is this, that maybe he takes a big step back and he's not able to create the amount of chances we saw last season. So yeah, despite underperforming, he's one that I would put in the category of just like really unknown, and unknown enough to not pick in my Game Week 1 squad. Next up, I think the next player I think is like a complete unknown is Rayan, who again was absolutely electric for Bournemouth. Young player, he could take 10 steps forward, but then we look at the amount of minutes that he's played in the Premier League. So small. He's only made 15 appearances. His XG overperformed by about almost double. So he got 5 goals, 2 assists. XG saying he should have gotten about maybe 3 goals, 3 assists. So good player. He's electric. By the eye test, he looks amazing. He's priced appropriately, I think. But he's one of those where I don't know, like he could realistically get like, let's say we double this and he plays 15 matches, like extrapolate over a whole season and double this. If he got 4 goals, 4 assists, would people be going crazy for him? Probably not. But again, I think he could improve upon the chances he's creating for himself and others and absolutely blow up. Like he's young, he's quick, he's so good. Like, yeah, it's a complete question mark for me. So I'm going to be avoiding Rayan, but I understand people that are bringing him in because on the eye test, he looks great. And the last player in this like kind of unknown section I'll talk about is Mitoma, who he has been very popular in FPL in the past, especially the 24-25 season. Last season, not so much. So if we go through all of his seasons at Brighton, 7 goals, 5 assists in his first season, 3 goals, 4 assists in his second season where he played only 19 matches, 10 goals, 4 assists in the season after that, and then 3 goals, 1 assist last season. So again, it's just like so up and down for him, where if he is injury free and he's the guy at Brighton, which I think largely he is, you know, he's getting older now, but he doesn't really have a lot of minutes in his legs. So just a complete unknown. I could see him being very good for stretches of the season and then like completely fucking off for other points of the season. So this will be the last player I talk about for unknown, but let's move on to teams I want to discuss, because I think that's maybe a more interesting conversation. Okay, switching over to teams, I want to focus in on like 3 or 4 teams per category, but starting with the teams that I think are in a good place to push on and do much better this season compared to last season. I'm going to start with Chelsea. I think they are in the best position to improve upon how they played last season for a few reasons. Number 1, they underperformed their expected points. So I'm on Understat for anybody who's just listening to the audio only podcast. They underperformed their expected points. If you go and sort by expected points, we should have seen them in 6th place. They ended up finishing in 10th. And on top of that, was in a season where they were playing Champions League football. This season, they will not be playing any European football. Oh, were they in Champions League, or maybe it was Europa League? I can't remember where they were last season, but they were in Europe last season. This season, no European football, just playing one match a week. I think that's greatly going to benefit Cole Palmer, who has had some injury issues, fitness issues. So I think Chelsea are in the best position. Like, I don't want to speak too soon, but I think that they could be a sneaky push for a title race. Honestly, I have full confidence in Xabi Alonso. I highly, highly rate. I would have loved him at Liverpool. I think Chelsea is very well set up for his style of play. Like, if he wants to flex between a back three and a back four, Chelsea are really well suited to that. Like, Reece James could be perfect as a right-sided center back. They brought in a right wing back. They sold a left back in Cucurella. And yeah, they could just, you could perfectly see how Rodgers and Palmer would be those like two floating tens behind somebody like João Pedro. So yeah, I think Chelsea are going to do very, very well this season. But there are some other teams in this kind of category that I think could push on and do much better. The next team I'll talk about, which I've kind of already touched upon, but Liverpool, they also underperformed their expected points by 1.5. I don't even know if I shouted out Chelsea, but 6.85 points. They underperformed by their expected points, whatever. Liverpool underperformed, not to as big of a degree, but as we could see, this was an abysmal season by Liverpool's standards. Yeah, they probably should have, by the expected points, still come in fourth. They ended up coming in fifth, but just looking at the eye test, watching them, seeing how quickly they transitioned the ball, which was like molasses, it can really only go up. So I would anticipate, even though that Andoni Iraola took time at Bournemouth to really implement his system, I think a lot of the Liverpool players are used to playing that high intensity, high press, and it will suit a lot of them. So maybe it won't take as long as it took at Bournemouth to implement the system. But if Liverpool can kick off quickly, I think Liverpool are another team that I think could be a sneaky push for a title race. They will be contending with Europe, of course, but and they have other structural issues that I talk about on the Cop End Theory. If you want to follow that YouTube and Substack, that link's in the description. But when I talk on the Cop End Theory, I discuss how the squad has been like so poorly planned. They don't really have the squad strength to compete. Maybe they don't have the strength to compete across all four competitions or whatever. That's a different conversation for a different day. But in the Premier League, I would expect Liverpool to improve upon how they did last season. Does that equal more points? Not necessarily, but I think how they play, and for FPL purposes, getting more goals, maybe keeping more clean sheets, I think we're going to see a bit more of that. Yeah. And the next team, I think this is kind of a slam dunk. I'm going to see a lot of people shouting them out as much improved upon last season because the bar was so low. Of course, we're talking about Tottenham Hotspur, who they ended up in 17th. By the expected points, they should have been in, I think that's 13th place. They underperformed their expected points by 8. So if we go across, the only team to underperform more was Leeds, it looks like. So, oh no, actually Wolves massively underperformed. But yeah, one of the top underperformers of expected points. They've got a much better manager who's much more Premier League proven, that will play the style of play that I think Tottenham want and the players are more accustomed to. So even though I really, really like Thomas Frank, and I hope he does well and gets another Premier League job sometime in the future, I think De Zerbi, I really highly rate him, and I think he'll do very well at Spurs. Now, will his temperament behind the scenes cause this all to explode and this prediction to be nonsense? Completely possible, more possible than like a Thomas Frank, for instance. But I do think De Zerbi will suit how Spurs play, and I would be shocked, absolutely shocked. I mean, I was shocked they were in 17th last year. I think everybody was, but if they don't get mid-table, I could, without European football to contend with. Of course, last season they did have Champions League, but without any type of European football to contend with, and with a new manager and all these players that they're bringing in, you would at a bare minimum expect mid-table. Probably more realistically, the bare minimum should be European places, so maybe like 8th through 6th. So that would be like a 10 place improvement on how they did last season. So a bit of an easy one, but I think Spurs and Spurs players specifically, we should be taking a look at. Maybe they're underpriced because of how they did last season, but we've got some new players, new manager, and I think they're just going to do so much better this coming season without European football to contend with. And lastly, let's talk about some teams that I think we may see them regress a little over the course of this coming season compared to last. So top of the list, unfortunately, and it's not really unfortunate as a Liverpool fan, but I do think Manchester United are going to regress. They overperformed their expected points by 6.55. It's one of the higher ones up there. Definitely in the top half, it's the highest. They overperformed their expected points more than Man City, more than Arsenal. They didn't have any European football. They got knocked out of the cups very quickly. Assuming they don't get knocked out of the cups quickly this season, they're going to have a lot more football to play. They won't be able to focus in, like zero in, lasered focused on one game a week. They're going to have a lot more to focus on. Some of their key players, I think Bruno Fernandes, as I kind of discussed a little bit, probably won't get 21 assists, probably won't get 30 goal involvements. So with that, plus all the contextual stuff, I could see them dropping down. Now, I think they have a manager that much better suits how they play. I think Michael Carrick is great for their system and just plays a lot of like common sense setup. Like, I think under Amorim, who now in hindsight is just like an absolute joke. I called it out at the very beginning. It just like didn't suit how they played. I said it multiple times, and I hate to say that as a Liverpool fan again, of course, but Amorim was just a terrible appointment. And in hindsight, it only gets worse because you're seeing Carrick take the same players, just play them in their natural positions, and shock horror, they're playing better. Who could have predicted that? But will that be enough? Plus taking the step up to Europe, plus playing more matches in the knockout competitions like FA Cup, Carabao Cup, and the heightened pressure of the Premier League. They've made some good signings, I think, but I don't know if their squad is big enough to take in all this additional football that they're going to be playing next season. So I'm still not saying that they're going to like fall out of the top half and go reverse all the way back to how they did the season before or whenever, but I could see them falling out of the top 5 just because I think Liverpool, Chelsea, Spurs, Brighton, even like a team like Leeds, Bournemouth, Newcastle, I think it's going to be a little bit more competitive in this like European place position compared to last season. I could be wrong, but, and again, I'm not saying that Manchester United are going to finish behind all these teams. I just think with the heightened competition, I would be surprised if Liverpool finished below them. I would be surprised if Chelsea finished below them. So I guess by that, I'm probably aiming for Manchester United to be around 5th or 6th. But we'll see. Maybe that's the bias in me. And again, I apologize if that is true. But Manchester United, I think, would be the number 1 team I would expect on a macro level to maybe take a little bit of a step back compared to how they did last season. The next team I'll talk about, another Manchester club, Man City, who the big reasons why no Pep Guardiola. Enzo Maresca, I think, is great, and he's probably about one of the better hires they could have made to suit their system as it currently stands. But I think there is some degree of whether he is tested at that top end of the pitch. Obviously, Chelsea, he managed to a pretty good degree. There were instances where, he was like kind of in a title race. I remember back to like December and maybe the season before, but Man City, I just think it's just a whole other beast. You're going to have better quality players, but with that comes more egos. We haven't seen him kind of manage that level yet. So, and then just the obvious, going from one of the best managers of all time in Pep Guardiola to Enzo Maresca, I think that might impact the players' mentalities a bit. So we'll see how they perform. They're still going to be title competitors unless they get some sort of points deduction. They're going to be right up at the top end of the table, but I would just be maybe a little bit cautious and of like over-indexing how well they did last season compared to like how they might do this season, because if I was placing a bet, I would say overall performances may drop, and that may impact FPL. Again, this is like an FPL conversation, but it's hard to like, sometimes it's not really separate from the general football discussion. Next team, kind of similar position, similar themes we'll be talking about, but Fulham, who had Marco Silva operating at a ridiculous level for year on year on year and just doing so well. Arbeloa, I'm just being honest, I really do not rate that as a managerial appointment. And when I talk about my prediction for the Premier League, when we get closer to the Premier League start of the season, I'm almost certainly going to have Fulham in the relegation zone. I don't think the quality of player that they have is Premier League quality, or like definitely not like mid-table where they have been finishing. So the fact that Marco Silva has gotten to that level, I think somebody that's not of that standard, like I don't think Arbeloa is of that standard, we can see like catastrophe right away. So I would actually pip Arbeloa for an early sack, and I could actually see them going for somebody like Thomas Frank, surprisingly enough. So if that happens, maybe they'll kind of float around the lower mid-table. But if they stick with Arbeloa, which they have been pretty faithful to managers in the past, I could see it getting really, really bad for Fulham. So I don't think I've even entertained any Fulham players for FPL, and maybe that's my thinking going into it and why it's like dictating those choices. But yeah, I would steer clear of all Fulham players, but I'm just fearful for Fulham in general. I like them in the Premier League. I like watching games at Craven Cottage. I just like them as a club, but I think they made a really bad managerial appointment, and I just really don't think they have the quality throughout the squad to do well. They've got like a couple good players, but attacking wise, they're in a lot of trouble. And the last team I'll talk about, which I hate to say it, but Crystal Palace, I am a little fearful for them and their position. And it's not because I don't think their new manager is bad. I just think that he doesn't have a lot of experience, and I really, really rated Ollie Glasner. So I probably would have switched this up. I probably would have said something like Nottingham Forest, but actually it's Crystal Palace who, since they swapped Ollie Glasner for Pierre Sage from Lens, I believe, and Nottingham Forest have Ollie Glasner, I think Nottingham Forest could do pretty well. And yeah, maybe this should just be unknown, but I think Ollie Glasner did so well with that Crystal Palace team, and Crystal Palace have been good making managerial appointments, especially with Ollie Glasner. But yeah, I would be a little fearful. I wouldn't say that they're like relegation threatened, but I could see them coming off worse. And they're a team that still has European football. They won the Conference League, if we remember. So despite finishing in 15th, they're going to be playing in the Europa League, which is the lowest placed team in the table to be in Europe. So I just think that could be challenging. I don't think Sage has managed any European games, so it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot for them, and I really don't think they have the squad size to contend with it. They not scraped by. They obviously won the Conference League, but the Conference League is a different beast to the Europa League. So that would be my prediction for Crystal Palace. I'm a little worried about them, and I really like them as a club, so I hope that they're able to maintain, but Worried. So that was my take on players to kind of monitor, watch out for. Players that I think could improve or get a lot worse compared to last season. Teams that I think could do better or worse compared to last season. And then everybody else is just kind of in the middle, maybe status quo. But those were the ones that I kind of wanted to touch on. So just be cautious out there, guys. There's a lot of time from now until the start of the Premier League season, so this may change, but as we're building our 1 millionth and 10th draft, I think these are some things to keep in mind. And if nothing else, is a good exercise into thinking, okay, these players, not the ones that I specifically touched on, but of your own opinion, if you think that, I don't know, maybe like Bournemouth are going to do really well, or Aston Villa are going to have a stinker, maybe that can allow you to kind of build in some point additions and point deductions across what we see in the stats, because we have the stats, but we have to do some projection, and this I think helps do that. So I would recommend everybody do that at home, and yeah. Hopefully you enjoyed. I am losing my voice, but more content to come. So as the week goes on, I'm hoping to come out with at least one other episode. We'll see. And to check it out on your own, subscribe, like, and you'll see more content just like drop into your feed. You don't even need to worry about it. So I'll see you then, and have a good one. Happy drafting.